किसी व्यक्ति के निर्माण का स्वर्णिम समय यौवन काल होता है, जिसमें वह आने वाले लंबे जीवन के लिए शरीर, मन और आत्मा का निर्माण और विकास करता है। इसी नींव पर अपने जीवन का मजबूत भवन खड़ा करता है और उसका भोग करता है। किसी भी राष्ट्र के विकास की आधारशिला और ऊर्जा उसकी युवा शक्ति ही होती है। यही उसका आत्मबल और इच्छा शक्ति भी होती है। इसीलिए कहा गया है, वीर भोग्य वसुंधरा। राष्ट्र निर्माण के ताने बाने में यौवन के ही धागे होते हैं। अतः जो राष्ट्र अपनी इस ऊर्जा का संरक्षण और संवर्धन करता है, वह विकास के उच्च शिखर पर पहुंचता है। राष्ट्र के कृषि, उद्योग, शिक्षा, चिकित्सा, तकनीक, राजनीति रूपी चक्के को यही युवा शक्ति, ऊर्जा व गति प्रदान करती है। यह राष्ट्र की रगों में बहने वाला गर्म खून है, जो उसे चैतन्य और प्रगतिशील बनाता है। भौतिक व आध्यात्मिक दोनों के विकास में इसी ऊष्मा का तप सक्रिय रहता है। इतिहास साक्षी रहा है कि जब किसी राष्ट्र की धुरी लड़खड़ाई है, युवा शक्ति ने आगे आकर अपने पुरुषार्थ से उसे सुदृढ़ बनाया है। आज अनेक प्रकार की समस्याएं जैसे नशा, फैशन परस्ती, पाश्चात्य जीवन शैली, आस्था संकट, भ्रष्टाचार, बेरोजगारी देश की युवा शक्ति पर आरूढ़ हैं। आज युवा शक्ति को आत्मबोध एवं अपने सांस्कृतिक गौरव से परिचित कराना समय की मांग है। वर्ष 2011 की जनगणना के अनुसार हमारे देश में 35 वर्ष तक की उम्र की 65% आबादी है। यह युवा शक्ति जिधर चल पड़ेगी, देश भी उधर ही चल पड़ेगा। अतः देश का भविष्य अब युवाओं के हाथ में है। यह युवा शक्ति ही राष्ट्र शक्ति बनकर राष्ट्र को समृद्धि, उन्नति एवं प्रगति के मार्ग पर ले जाएगी। युग ऋषि पंडित श्रीराम शर्मा आचार्य जी ने युवा की अद्भुत परिभाषा दी है। युवा वो है असंभव जिसके शब्दकोश में नहीं, जो बाधाओं को चीर कर अपना मार्ग बनाता है, जो परिस्थितियों का दास नहीं, उनका निर्माता, नियंत्रणकर्ता एवं स्वामी है, जो भाग्य नहीं, अपने कर्म पर विश्वास रखता है, जो उमंग, उत्साह, जोश से जीता व सुनहरे भविष्य के सपने देखता है, जो स्वयं सब कुछ करके गौरव अनुभव करता है और विश्व में कुछ अनूठा करना चाहता है।
असमंजस व अवसाद की स्थिति से गुजर रही युवा पीढ़ी को दिशा देने का काम एक चिंतक ही कर सकता है।
नमस्कार।
वर्ष 2006 में देव संस्कृति विश्वविद्यालय के दीक्षांत समारोह में पूर्व राष्ट्रपति डॉक्टर APJ अब्दुल कलाम व श्रद्धेय डॉक्टर प्रणव पंड्या जी, जो विश्वविद्यालय के कुलपति भी हैं, मिले और इन दोनों चिंतकों ने मंथन किया कि युवा पीढ़ी को एक सृजनात्मक मंच देने की आवश्यकता है जो राष्ट्र निर्माण में सहायक हो। यहीं से दिया की नींव रखी गई।
I am indeed delighted to participate in the second convocation of Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya. I am very happy that this institution has been created with a motto of developing the divine culture, which is of utmost importance to us while we are on the path of transforming India into a prosperous, happy and peaceful society. We have the responsibility of transforming India into a developed nation before the year 2020. It is an endless journey through knowledge and enlightenment. Such a journey opens up new vistas of development or humanism, where there is no scope nor room for pettiness, disharmony, jealousy and hatred or enmity. It transforms a human being into a wholesome whole, a noble soul and an asset to the universe. God bless you.
जिस तरह एक दिया अंधकार को दूर करने की क्षमता रखता है, दिया भी इस देश के युवा मन से अंधेरे को दूर करने का स्वप्न लेकर चला है। ये प्रशिक्षण और कार्यशालाओं के माध्यम से शिक्षित, स्वस्थ, आत्मनिर्भर, विनम्र, संवेदनशील दिव्य युवाओं को तैयार करने के लिए प्रयासरत है, जिससे राष्ट्र निर्माण की रचनात्मक गतिविधियां चलाई जा सकें, दिव्य भारत का पुनर्निर्माण हो। इसका लक्ष्य युवाओं की क्षमताओं का विकास कर दिव्य भारत का निर्माण करना है, जिसमें व्यक्ति, परिवार व समाज का उत्थान हो। दिया युवाओं के सपनों में आदर्शवाद लाकर उनकी वैचारिक प्रक्रिया में सकारात्मक बदलाव लाने के लिए प्रयासरत है। वैज्ञानिक अध्यात्म के माध्यम से युवाओं में देवत्व की अभिव्यक्ति, दुनिया में सद्भाव के साथ सतयुग की वापसी इसका परम उद्देश्य है। इस तथ्य की महत्वता समझते हुए वो डॉक्टर कलाम के भारतवर्ष को वर्ष 2020 तक एक समृद्ध राष्ट्र बनाने के स्वप्न की ओर युवा शक्ति को अग्रसर करने के लिए दिया इस महान राष्ट्र के युवाओं के लिए एक आंदोलन है जो मजबूत सिद्धांतों और यथार्थवादी लक्ष्यों पर आधारित है। जो लोग दिल और दिमाग से युवा हैं एवं जो एक नए भारत की परिकल्पना के हमारे स्वप्न से सहमत हैं, उम्र, जाति या धर्म की परवाह किए बगैर हमसे जुड़े।
मुझे विश्वास है गायत्री परिवार के दिया आंदोलन के माध्यम से देश के युवाओं में वो संवेदनाएं प्रकट होगी, सामाजिक जिम्मेवारियां प्रकट होगी, एक साहस की वृत्ति पैदा होगी, कुछ करने के लिए, कुछ कर करके दिखाने के लिए जीवन को लगाने की इच्छा होगी। देश के लिए जीना सीखो इस मंत्र के साथ।
इस आंदोलन से जुड़कर आपके जीवन में खुशी एवं एक नए उत्साह का संचार होगा। साथ ही अपने राष्ट्र को नई ऊंचाइयों तक ले जाने में आप गौरवान्वित महसूस करेंगे।
नमस्ते, मैं सुचिता शेट्टी अखिल विश्व गायत्री परिवार की युवा इकाई दिया मुंबई की ओर से सारे दर्शकों का स्वागत करती हूँ जो वेरियस सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म्स भी फेसबुक, यूट्यूब, ट्विटर पे जुड़े हुए सारे दर्शकों को मेरा नमस्कार, मेरा प्रणाम। आज की ज्ञान सभा की शुरुआत हम शुरू करना चाहेंगे गायत्री मंत्र के सत उच्चारण के साथ। गायत्री माँ, परम पूज्य गुरुदेव और परम वंदनीय माता जी की सूक्ष्म उपस्थिति को साक्षी मानते हुए सभी से नम्र निवेदन, कमर सीधी आंखें बंद और आप सभी मन ही मन गायत्री मंत्र का उच्चारण मेरे साथ करें। ओम भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। आज की ज्ञान सभा को हम एक ऐसे विषय को कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं which is mental and emotional wellness. I think there has never been a better time to discuss a challenge like mental health, a highly topical subject, something from which everybody runs away. And especially amidst the pandemic, when we are seeing what's coming in the newspapers every day, the increasing number of COVID cases pan India, the rising levels of depression, anxiety, and this has affected not just an individual, but families across society, across the globe. Two of the most common mental health conditions, depression and anxiety, I would like to bring some numbers in front of you. It has cost the global economy US $1 trillion each year, says World Health Organization. Approximately 1 billion people globally have a mental or substance use disorder, according to Our World in Data, an online scientific publication. India contributes significantly to the global mental, neurological, and substance abuse disorder. 1 in 7 Indians is affected by mental disorder of various severity in the year 2017. And I'm sure with the pandemic, I'm sure you would have a magnitude of how that number is going on increasing with every passing year. In 2022, when Dia Mumbai had a brainstorming session, this was something which came across when, especially, I'm sure when you have seen the video, you came across a lot of workshops and initiatives that Dia Mumbai has taken. One such initiative is something which is mental health. And we couldn't have had a better person than respected Aparna Piramal Raje to speak on it. To speak on Aparna, to speak about ma'am, she's a writer, columnist, public speaker, educator, advisor who likes to connect the dots and explores the intersections between diverse disciplines. Leadership, business design, workplace, education, and mental health are her overlapping areas of interest. There were a lot of topics that we proposed to her, but something which is very close to her heart and an area where she's currently working and passionate. And she's got this passion, she's got this quest so that she's able to make a difference in the lives of many people currently who are facing with this challenge of mental health. With this passion, she's agreed to share her journey with the challenges that she faced in her life. She attributes her interest in multidisciplinary thinking to her time as a student at Oxford University and at Harvard Business School. Her popular column, Head Office in the Mint newspaper, looks at leadership through the blended lens of workspace design and management work styles. The column led to her first book, Working Out of the Box: 40 Stories of Leading CEOs. She's examined the confluence of various parallel forces that shape our cities for newspapers like UK's Financial Times Weekend. She's invited as a faculty member at Anand National University, Ahmedabad, where she teaches a module called Netflix and the Art of Design Writing. Ma'am also enjoys speaking on design, leadership, business, and she's invited at various forums, including industry associations, companies, and business schools. Coming from a family of Lego enthusiasts, she's a trained Lego Serious Play facilitator, an advisor to Wonder Girls, a learning platforms for adolescents girl, and Talk to Me, a mental health NGO. Not just this, something which is of interest to all of us, and including me, we are looking forward for the publication. I mean, I'm sure, I wouldn't speak much on that. I would request ma'am to touch on this. And especially the title was something which was, one couldn't stop to read that book. And this is none other than the book, Chemical Khichdi: How I Hacked My Mental Health. With this book, she seeks to leverage her lived experience to contribute to India's mental health landscape. And yes, not to forget, we at Diya Mumbai request you all to visit her website www.aparnapiramalraje.com and connect with her on social media to, I mean, today's Gyan Sabha is going to touch upon, is going to give us solutions to this gregarious problem of mental health, which I think each one of us who's listening to this Gyan Sabha has faced at some or the other juncture of their life. So here, with due respect, admiration, salute to this great Indian woman, Aparna Piramal Raje. I request you, ma'am, to speak on mental and emotional wellness. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Suchita, and thank you to Diya for having me here and for making me part of your Gyan Sabha today. With so many illustrious speakers that you've had, it's great to be in this company. तो मैं आपके साथ एक presentation share करना चाहूँगी. तो आप मुझे please बताइए कि ये share हो रहा है कि थोड़ा echo है. Is the screen being shared? All okay, great. Okay, तो ये मेरी नई किताब है केमिकल खिचड़ी, हाउ आई हैक्ड माय मेंटल हेल्थ. मैं उसके बारे में बताना चाहती हूँ, पर मैं बताना चाहती हूँ कि ये आपके लिए और आपकी ज़िंदगी के लिए क्यों रेलेवेंट है. तो शुरू कर लेते हैं. तो मेंटल और इमोशनल वेलनेस ये टॉपिक जो कह रहे थे कि आजकल बहुत ही रेलेवेंट है, क्योंकि जो पैंडेमिक हुआ है इसका जो असर हुआ है उसको शैडो पैंडेमिक कहते हैं. मेंटल हेल्थ, मेंटल इलनेस, उसको शैडो पैंडेमिक कहते हैं. तो पहले मैं थोड़े मिथ्स और गलत फहमी के बारे में बात करना चाहूँगी. फिर मेरे लिए और मेरी ज़िंदगी में जो पाथवे था वेलनेस तक, मेंटल इलनेस से वेलनेस तक मैंने जो जर्नी की उसके बारे में, और फिर थोड़े ही कंक्लूजन्स. तो बस्टिंग मिथ्स ऑन मेंटल इलनेस से शुरू कर लेते हैं. जब हम मेंटल इलनेस के बारे में सोचते हैं तो शायद ये शब्द हमारे मन में आते हैं: मैड, क्रेजी, साइको, मेंटल, इनसेन, पागल, गॉन केस. ये सही शब्द हैं जो हम लोग डे टू डे अपने कॉन्वर्सेशन में हम लोग ये शब्द इस्तेमाल किया करते हैं. और इसमें हमारी ये जो भाषा ही है, इसमें आई एम नॉट ट्राइंग टू मेक अ वैल्यू जजमेंट, बट व्हाट इफ़ आई टोल्ड यू कि ये सब शब्द मेरे बारे में कह सकते थे, कि मेरी ज़िंदगी में एक ज़माना था जो ये सारे के सारे शब्द आप मेरे बारे में कह सकते थे, पर मेरे बारे में ये शब्द भी कह सकते हैं कि मैं मदर हूँ, मैं राइटर हूँ, मैं प्रोफेसर हूँ, मैं स्पीकर हूँ, मैं फॉर्मर एक कंपनी की CEO थी, मैं हार्वर्ड की ग्रेजुएट हूँ, ऑक्सफोर्ड की ग्रेजुएट हूँ. और मैं थोड़ी पिक्चर दिखाऊंगी. ये जब मैं 26 साल की थी ये मैं अपने फैमिली बिजनेस की कंपनी, एक ऑफिस फर्नीचर की कंपनी थी अर्गो, जो मैं चला रही थी। ये मेरे टीम मेंबर्स थे और हम लोग सब जर्मनी में एक शो कर रहे थे। वी वर द फर्स्ट कंपनी टू टेक पार्ट इन दिस शो, फर्स्ट इंडियन company to take part in this furniture exhibition, which was held an international furniture exhibition. So I was running this company. So that was one of the things that I've done in my life. अभी मैं एक कॉलम लिख रही हूँ मिंट न्यूज़पेपर की। ये मेरी किताब है जो पहली छपी हुई थी 7 साल पहले, वर्किंग आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स, जिसमें मैंने 40 सीईओज़, बड़े सीईओज़ की इंटरव्यूज़ ली थी और इसमें इसके बारे में छपी थी। अभी ये जो कॉलम जो राइट में आपको दिखाई दे रहा है, वो मेरा 100th एडिशन था जो अभी जनवरी में छपा हुआ था। तो मैं ये 13 साल से ये कॉलम भी लिख रही हूँ और बड़े लोगों की इंटरव्यू छप रही है। और मैं प्रोफेसर भी हूँ एक यूनिवर्सिटी गुजरात में, और मैं डिज़ाइन और राइटिंग, और मेरी मॉड्यूल जो है उसको नेटफ्लिक्स एंड द आर्ट ऑफ डिज़ाइन राइटिंग कहते हैं। तो मैं अपने स्टूडेंट्स को राइटिंग के बारे में सिखाती हूँ डिज़ाइन और डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज़ के तौर से। तो आप देख सकते हैं कि मैं ये अलग अलग चीज़ें करती हूँ, पर फिर मुझे मेंटल क्यों कहते हैं? तो ये मेंटल चीज़ कैसे हो सकती है? तो पहला मिथ जो गलतफहमी जो मैं बस्ट करना चाहती हूँ इज यू कैन हैव अ मेंटल इलनेस एंड यू कैन लिव अ नॉर्मल लाइफ। दोनों चीज़ हो सकती हैं। तो मेरी जो इलनेस है वो बाइपोलर डिसऑर्डर कहते हैं, उसके बारे में और मैं बताऊंगी। पर ये बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है कि जो हमारी ज़िंदगी में जो भी मेंटल इलनेस हो, डिप्रेशन, स्ट्रेस, एंग्जाइटी, वो दोनों चीज़ हो सकती है। तुम आप नॉर्मल हो सकते हैं और आप में ये इलनेस दोनों भी हो सकती है। तो जो मैं सोचती हूँ कि मेरे पास बीमारी है पर मैं अनवेल नहीं हूँ, और उसके बारे में मैं और कहूँगी। पहले मैं ये वीडियो दिखाऊंगी, इसमें शायद ऑडियो का प्रॉब्लम है, तो पर सबटाइटल्स हैं तो सब दिखाई देगा। So that is about me कि I was diagnosed with bipolar when it started off when I was 24, and then I finally accepted the diagnosis much later and started taking medication. But for the past 20 years, I have been living with this condition, and I will talk to you to explain what bipolar is. But I will say here that there is a difference between personality and illness, and that is the second most important myth. फॉर मैनी ईयर्स आई वॉज अफ्रेड ऑफ अ डायग्नोसिस। मैं नॉर्मल बनना चाहती थी। मुझे डायग्नोसिस, मेडिकेशन, डॉक्टर के यहाँ जाना, साइकेट्रिस्ट के यहाँ जाना, वो सब मुझे बिल्कुल वो से बहुत डर था। और मैं कहना चाहती हूँ, अगर आप भी ये सब प्रॉब्लम्स यूथ में ही शुरू हो जाते हैं। मैं 24 साल की थी जब ये सब शुरू हुआ था, और उस वक्त मैं बिल्कुल तैयार नहीं थी। तो मैं अभी आज कहना चाहती हूँ कि अगर मेरे पास वो जानकारी होती जो आज मेरे पास है, वो डर नहीं रहता। क्योंकि एक डॉक्टर ने मुझे आखिर बोला, शी हैज़ अ नॉर्मल पर्सनालिटी। उन्होंने एक चिट्ठी लिखी जिसमें उन्होंने पूरा मेरा डायग्नोसिस किया, हिस्ट्री सब लिखा, और उसके बोला उसकी पर्सनालिटी बिल्कुल नॉर्मल है, पर केमिकल खिचड़ी तो है। वो केमिकल खिचड़ी क्या है कि वो केमिकल इम्बैलेंसेस है कि जब मेरे लाइफ में कुछ ट्रिगर्स हुए, जैसे साइकोलॉजिकल ट्रिगर्स हो गए, स्ट्रेस हुआ, एंग्जाइटी हुआ, तो अगर मेरी नींद डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगी 5-6 दिन के लिए, तो फिर मेरी केमिकल इम्बैलेंसेस हो सकते हैं जिससे मेरा बिहेवियर बहुत ही बदल जाता है। तो ये मेरी पर्सनालिटी है जो बिल्कुल नॉर्मल जैसी है। आप देखते ये मैं 24 साल की थी। आई थिंक आई वाज अ रियली फन, थोड़ा हटके, ऑलवेज अ वेरी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक पर्सन, वेरी वाइब्रेंट, लाइवली पर्सन, एंड दैट इज़ माय नॉर्मल सेल्फ। पर जब मैं मैनिक हो जाती हूँ, बाइपोलर तो मेरा बर्ताव बिल्कुल अलग है। बाइपोलर का मीनिंग क्या है कि दो एक्सट्रीम्स होते हैं। एक मूड स्विंग्स होते हैं जो एक्सट्रीमली हाई और एक्सट्रीमली लो होते हैं। तो हाई में उसको मेनिया कहते हैं और लो में डिप्रेशन कहते हैं। और हाई में बहुत से अलग अलग तरह के विचार होते हैं, नींद नहीं आती है, एनर्जी बहुत हाई है और फेशियल एक्सप्रेशंस अलग है। तो मैं एक पिक्चर शेयर करना चाहती हूँ जो मैंने बहुत लोगों से नहीं शेयर किया है। ये है पिक्चर जब मैं और मेरी बहन 4 साल पहले स्विट्ज़रलैंड में थे और आप देख सकते हैं कि इसमें मेरा चेहरा बिल्कुल अलग है। मैं बहुत दिनों से मुझे नींद ठीक से नहीं हुई थी। मेरा फेस थोड़ा कंटॉर्टेड है और उसमें अंदर से वो एक स्ट्रगल है। एक स्ट्रगल हो रहा है जो मैं फुल्ली बिल्कुल मेरा my behavior is not normal at that time, and I was really struggling. I was struggling for thoughts and struggling for ideas. There was too much going on inside my head at that time. So that is an expression of somebody who's mania. और मैं ये दिखाना चाहती हूँ कि हम लोग कभी mania या ऐसे कुछ दिखाते हैं ना, जो मीडिया में दिखाते हैं या फिल्म्स में दिखाते हैं, तो उसमें वो जो डिपिक्शन है वो शायद ऑलवेज ठीक नहीं रहता है। ये ऐसा नहीं है कि लोग पागल जैसे हो जाते हैं, पर इसमें बहुत ही स्लीप डिप्राइव्ड और थोड़ा जैसे जोंक्ड आउट जैसे हम लोग कहते हैं ना, तो उस तरह का एक्सप्रेशन होता है। और कभी-कभी मुझे जिस तरह के थॉट्स हैं वो एक नशे की तरफ जैसे हैं। तो आपको शायद ये अच्छा you might find this funny. Every self-respecting manic episode has a music soundtrack I wrote in my book. And these are some of the songs that I listen to, and I love listening to these songs. अभी इसका मतलब नहीं है कि अगर आप ये गाने ही सुनते हैं तो आप भी बाइपोलर है, कि आपके भी मूड स्विंग्स हो रहे हैं। ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है, मैं ये नहीं कहना चाहती हूँ। पर मुझे पता है कि अगर मैं ये गाने 5 बार या 6 बार लगातार सुन रही हूँ तो मेरे मन में कुछ अलग तरह के विचार हो रहे हैं और मैं हाई उस तरफ हो रही हूँ। तो मुझे अपने खुद पर थोड़ा काबू रखना पड़ेगा। और डिप्रेशन क्या है? डिप्रेशन तो हम लोग सब जानते हैं, पर मेरे लिए है कि बहुत क्वाइट होना, विथड्रॉन होना, अपनी दुनिया में हो। इसका मतलब नहीं कि मैं सिर्फ बिस्तर में बैठी हूँ, मैं कुछ काम नहीं कर रही हूँ। मैं अपनी दुनिया में हूँ, पर मैं क्वाइट और विथड्रॉन हूँ। तो ये पिक्चर मैं दिखाना चाहती हूँ मैं अपने बच्चों के साथ, कि आप देख सकती हूँ कि मैं उनके साथ हूँ, वो है, पर फिर भी मैं किताब अपने आप बहुत क्वाइट हूँ, गंभीर हूँ और अपनी दुनिया में हूँ। तो ये स्केच मैं दिखाना चाहती हूँ प्योरली रिप्रेजेंटेशन पर्पस के लिए, कि जब मूड स्विंग्स कैसे होते हैं। तो कभी बहुत ही हाई हो जाते हैं और फिर थोड़ा डिप्रेशन होता है थोड़े दिन के लिए और वो चलता रहेगा, और फिर पीरियड्स ऑफ नॉर्मलसी भी हैं, पर नॉर्मलसी में भी ऊपर नीचे होता रहता है। उसको जो मैं अभी सीखी हूँ उसको कैसे हैक करते हैं और अपने आप को कैसे नॉर्मल, पीसफुल, स्टेबल, जॉयफुल कैसे रख सकते हैं। और फिर भी कभी भी हाई हो सकता है, कभी भी लो। अभी पिछले 4 साल से कुछ ऐसे बड़ा मैनिक एपिसोड हुआ नहीं है, डिप्रेशन हुआ नहीं है, इसीलिए शायद मैंने ये किताब लिख पाई और मैं इसके बारे में बात कर सकती हूँ। क्योंकि पहले भी मैं लिखना चाहती थी, पर मैं ये मूड स्विंग्स के वजह से मैं नहीं लिख पाई। फिर तीसरा जो मिथ है कि मेंटल इलनेस अलग दूसरे लोगों को होता है। अभी आजकल मुझे बहुत लोग बोल रहे हैं कि आपने किताब लिखी है, वो बहुत लोगों को मदद करेगी, इसके यूज़ बहुत लोगों के लिए हेल्प करेगी। पर ये ये दूसरे लोग कौन हैं? ये लोग हम ही हैं, क्योंकि अपने देश में करीब 200 मिलियन लोग या 200 मिलियन लोग को ये मेंटल हेल्थ की कुछ ना कुछ, कभी ना कभी कुछ ना कुछ हो रहा है। और ये जो स्टेटिस्टिक है वो पैंडेमिक के पहले है, तो पैंडेमिक के बाद ये तो फिगर बहुत ही बढ़ गया है। और मैंने जो रिसर्च किया था उससे पता हुआ कि ये कैंसर से ज़्यादा भी जो रेट्स हैं मेंटल हेल्थ के हैं। हम कैंसर के बारे में कितना बात करते हैं और लोग खुले तरह से बात करते हैं, पर मेंटल हेल्थ को हम लोग उस खुले तरह से बात नहीं किया करते हैं। और यूथ के लिए अगर मेंटल इलनेस भी नहीं है पर स्ट्रेसर्स तो इतने ज़्यादा रहते हैं ना, एग्जाम्स, रिलेशनशिप्स, मैरिज, करियर, कॉलेज एडमिशन, पीयर प्रेशर, सोशल मीडिया, अलग अलग तरह के ये जो रिलेशनशिप्स, अलग अलग तरह के ये जो स्ट्रेसर्स होते हैं, और इसी से ही सब जो आगे की ज़िंदगी है उससे ही ये मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज शुरू हो जाते हैं। तो पाथवे क्या है? मैंने जो पिक्चर्स आपको दिखाई 4 साल पहले जो मेरी स्थिति थी और उसके पहले जो भी डिप्रेशन था और आज मेरी जो स्थिति है, वो उसमें जो फ़र्क हुआ है वो पाथवे क्या है? पहले बहुत ज़रूरी है जो मैं कहती हूँ मेडिकल थेरेपी। इसमें बोथ मेडिकेशन और टॉक थेरेपी है। मेडिकेशन में डॉक्टर से जाना, साइकियाट्रिस्ट से मिलना, गोली लेना, वो बहुत ज़रूरी है और सही ढंग से लेना चाहिए, उनकी बात जो सुनकर। ऐसा नहीं है कि एक दिन लो दूसरे दिन नहीं लो, पर अपने आप को वो ब्लड टेस्ट करना, ये सब करना पड़ता है। और ये मेरे ज़िंदगी में बिल्कुल नॉर्मल है कि मैं कह सकती हूँ कि जिस तरह आप कोई भी दूसरे डॉक्टर के यहाँ जाते होंगे अपने जो भी चेकअप करवाने के लिए, मेरे लिए साइकियाट्रिस्ट के पास जाना और एंटीसाइकोटिक ड्रग्स लेना, और मैं अभी 9 साल से ये दवाई ले रही हूँ और मैं शायद मुझे ज़िंदगी भर कुछ ना कुछ लेना पड़ेगा, पर मैं उसके लिए अभी तैयार हूँ। पर दवाई से पूरा मामला नहीं हल हो जाता है। ये टॉक थेरेपी बहुत ही ज़रूरी चीज़ है जो साइकोथेरेपिस्ट या थेरेपिस्ट से हो जाती है, काउंसलर से। अभी मैं काउंसलर को महीने में 2 बार मिलती हूँ और वो मेरे लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। और आई थिंक दैट दिस इज़ समथिंग दैट a lot of young people can benefit from, even if they are not necessarily looking at a mental illness or a mental health condition which is as serious as something like bipolar. But even if they just want to talk to a therapist, my book has a lot of ideas on, you know, resources then that people can talk to and access, and also places that are affordable and accessible. There are many more of these now, and I think that really this is something that is very important to do, because therapy is something that is so beneficial. It is very different to talk to a friend and talk to a trained therapist. So this is something that I would really advise. अभी बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ है लव थेरेपी, जो मैं कहती हूँ। और लव थेरेपी इज़ द रोल ऑफ द फैमिली एंड द रिलेशनशिप्स इन योर लाइफ, जो आपके सबसे करीब और नज़दीक है ज़िंदगी में। क्योंकि मेंटल हेल्थ जो है एक टीम स्पोर्ट है। जो मेरी फैमिली है, जो मेरी परिवार है, वो फ़ोटोज़ तो नहीं छिपवाना चाहते थे इधर प्रेजेंटेशन में, पर मैं कहना चाहती थी वो बिल्कुल मेरे टीम स्पोर्ट है। उनके लिए हम लोग सब, इन्होंने मुझे इतना एक्सेप्ट किया है। और अगर आपके फैमिली या आपके जो परिवार लोग, आपके जो रिश्तेदार, आपके जो बिल्कुल जो करीब हैं, वो एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे तो वो बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है। उन्होंने मुझे बहुत एक्सेप्ट किया, इसीलिए मैं भी उनको ट्रस्ट करती हूँ। और इस on that basis they are like a team that are supporting each other, because it is difficult for them also to sometimes it is difficult for them when I am having a manic episode. But they support each other, and that is why that is the most important, one of the most important takeaways for me in mental health. Allies and the therapy of empathy, इसका क्या मतलब है? एलाइज जो हैं, अपने जो दूसरे जो रिलेशनशिप्स हैं अपने ज़िंदगी में, फ्रेंड्स या कम्युनिटी मेंबर्स, नेबर्स, नेटवर्क्स, क्लासमेट्स, कॉलीग्स, दीज आर अदर पीपल इन योर लाइफ जो एम्पथी दे पाएंगे, जो अपने लेट्स से वो फैमिलीज जैसे इतने नज़दीक नहीं हैं पर फिर भी हमदर्दी बहुत दिखा सकते हैं। सो फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल, ये मेरे कुछ खास फ्रेंड्स हैं, मैं इनको मेरी डेली डाउनलोड फ्रेंड्स कहती हूँ। और डेली डाउनलोड फ्रेंड्स का क्या मतलब है कि हम लोग डेली एक दूसरे से बात किया करते हैं। ऐसा नहीं कि हमारा ग्रुप है व्हाट्सएप पर अलग अलग में हमारी बातचीत होती है। आज क्या हुआ, कल क्या करेंगे, ओ मेरी बूस्टर जैब हो रही है, मेरी ये तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, या मेरे बच्चों ये कर रहे हैं, मेरा वर्क हो रहा है, इसका कोई प्लान करेंगे। हर रोज़ हमारी जो बातचीत होती है, या कि मैं इस चीज़ पर मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगा, तो ये बातचीत मेरे लिए तो बहुत ही ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि हर चीज़ हमारे फैमिली से हम लोग नहीं शेयर करते हैं ना, हम अपने परिवार, हम फ्रेंड्स के साथ शेयर करते हैं। और ये बातचीत जो मेरे लिए बहुत रिलैक्सिंग है, मेरे जो इमोशंस जो भी हैं मैं उनसे शेयर कर पाती हूँ। और इसके लिए ज़रूरी नहीं है कि ये फ्रेंड्स नज़दीक आपके पास ही रहे। मेरी सबसे क्लोज़ फ्रेंड्स दुबई, लंदन और सैन फ्रांसिस्को में रहते हैं। तो मैं उनको इतनी मतलब मैं पिछले 2-3 साल से हार्डली मिली हूँ। पर फिर भी हम लोग व्हाट्सएप पर बात किया करते हैं, मिलते हैं, वर्चुअली मिलते हैं। तो उस हिसाब से वो फ्रेंडशिप बहुत ही ज़रूरी है। तो आप शायद सोचते होंगे कि अगर मेरे ज़िंदगी में कोई है जिसके पास मेंटल हेल्थ कंडीशन हो, मैं उनको किस तरह का सपोर्ट कर सकता हूँ। तो ये डेली डाउनलोड फैन होने से बहुत सपोर्ट मुझे मिलता है। और ख़ासकर मेरी एक फ्रेंड उपासना है। छोटी सी एग्जांपल मैं कहना चाहती हूँ। मैं जब मेरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट मैंने पहले बार लिखा था, हम लोग एक ही जगह थे, सोहो हाउस में। तो मैं गई थी, मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट मैंने एडिटर को भेज दिया मेरी किताब की। तो मैं कहीं गई थी और फिर वो आकर वापस उसने लिखा था, कांग्रेचुलेशंस अपर्णा, फ्राइडे 24 सोहो हाउस में आपने ये भेजा है मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट। अभी ये नैपकिन मेरे पास अभी तक है, मैंने रखा है, मुझे इतनी खुशी की बात है। तो छोटी-छोटी चीज़ें से ये बहुत ज़रूरी होती है मेंटल हेल्थ और मेंटल वेलनेस के लिए। और दूसरी जो मेरे नेटवर्क की बहुत ज़रूरी है ये बुक क्लब। आजकल ये फ्रेज़ बहुत कॉमन हो गया है, इस सेफ स्पेसेस। और मेरे लिए ये बुक क्लब बहुत ही सेफ स्पेस है, जहाँ मैं अपने राइटिंग के बारे में, मैं अपने इमोशंस और मूड स्विंग्स के बारे में बहुत ओपनली बात कर सकती हूँ। पहली बार जब मैं अपनी ये किताब लिखना चाहती थी, तो मैंने अपने बुक क्लब से बताया कि देखो मैं लिखना चाहती हूँ और ये मैंने उसका ड्राफ्ट भी लिखा है, आप क्या सोच रहे हैं इसके बारे में। और पहली इन औरतों ने ही मुझे बताया कि हाँ, ये ऐसे लिखना चाहिए, ये बहुत ही अच्छा है, फीडबैक भी मिला। तो ये फीडबैक और उनका जो इनकरेजमेंट और कॉन्फिडेंस जो मुझसे उधर से मिला, वो बहुत ही ज़रूरी है, जिससे मैं ये किताब लिख पाई। और इस तरह का स्पेस आपके ज़िंदगी में होना चाहिए। ये सपोर्ट ग्रुप जो है, ये बहुत बहुत ज़रूरी है। फिर वर्क थेरेपी चौथी है। अभी आप वर्क में भी हो या कॉलेज में भी हो या स्कूल में भी कुछ पढ़ रहे हैं, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि आपके जो कॉलीग्स हैं या क्लासमेट्स हैं, उनको भी पता होना चाहिए। क्योंकि मेरे लिए ये गेम चेंजर बिल्कुल था। तो क्या हुआ था कि फैमिली तो को पहले पता ही रहता है और फ्रेंड्स को भी पता रहता ही है, पर जब तक आपके कॉलीग्स को नहीं पता है, आप ठीक से काम नहीं कर पाते हैं। और मेरा क्या हुआ कि मैंने बहुत से असाइनमेंट्स लिए और फिर मैं नहीं कर पाई। फिर मेरे एडिटर्स पूछ रहे हैं कि कैसे हम लोग इनको आर्टिकल्स को कैसे छपवाएंगे कि टाइम पर नहीं हो रहा है। तो फिर मुझे उनको बताया ही पड़ा कि देखो मेरी ये बीमारी है और ये कभी-कभी ये होता है। ऐसा नहीं है कि ये परमानेंट चीज़ है, कभी ज़्यादा बढ़ जाता है, कभी कम होता है। इसको मुझे संभालना पड़ेगा, इसका मतलब स्ट्रेस मुझे संभालना पड़ेगा। तो जब वो लोग समझ पाए, तो मुझे भी उन्होंने ज़्यादा टाइम दिया अपना काम करने के लिए और काम भी अच्छी तरह से मैं कर पाई। तो ये बिल्कुल गेम चेंजर हुआ। और आज अगर मैं ये कॉन्वर्सेशन कर रही हूँ, आपके साथ ओपनली बात कर रही हूँ, तो क्योंकि ये लोगों ने मुझे सपोर्ट किया। तो जब तक वर्क लोगों को पता नहीं है, आपके कॉलीग्स को नहीं पता है, यू कांट ब्रिंग योर होल सेल्फ टू वर्क एट ऑल। So these were just some of the things that I've been able to do since I shared my disorder openly with my colleagues. सेल्फ थेरेपी बहुत ज़रूरी है। ये कॉन्वर्सेशंस जो आप अपने साथ करेंगे, आप अपने खुद के साथ जो रिफ्लेक्ट करेंगे, एनालाइज करेंगे कि आप खुद कैसे इम्प्रूव कर सकते हैं, क्या कमियां हैं, ये बीमारी है तो कहाँ से आप कैसे उसको टैकल करेंगे, कैसे उसको मैनेज करेंगे, आपके ट्रिगर्स क्या है, आपके लिए स्ट्रेस क्यों आता है। तो ये अगर आप डायरी या जर्नल मेंटेन कर सकते हैं, मैं अभी 10 साल से जर्नल्स मेंटेन कर रही हूँ और उससे मुझे बहुत इंसाइट मिल रहा है। आपके लिए मैं एक उदाहरण शेयर कर लूँगी। तो मैंने मई 2012 में लिखा था, I need to still find a way of turning my intellectual interests, writing, film, and design into something that is of value and will also fulfill my needs of winning peer respect. This is both exciting because there are several options and the road is open, as well as terrifying because of the uncertainty. So I was very honest with myself. If you can see what I've written it with a lot of honesty and a lot of reflection. And the book actually has a lot of examples of my journal entries, which I think should be interesting to you also. स्पिरिचुअल थेरेपी बहुत ही ज़रूरी है, बहुत ही लाइफ चेंजिंग है। और जो मैंने स्टडी किया है, थोड़ा बहुत भगवत गीता की स्टडी की, बहुत इन डेप्थ नहीं किया था, पर मैंने वेदांत एकेडमी के साथ 1 साल के लिए अटैचमेंट, हॉलोकॉस्ट ऑफ अटैचमेंट के बारे में एक स्टडी किया, अटैचमेंट और डिटैचमेंट के बारे में। और आप शायद सोचेंगे कि ये स्पिरिचुअल थेरेपी एग्जैक्टली किस तरह से मूड स्विंग्स को अफेक्ट करते हैं। तो मूड अल्टीमेटली मैं एक बहुत बहुत अलग अलग तरह से हो सकते हैं, अलग अलग तरह का इफ़ेक्ट है। पर सबसे ज़्यादा मैं कहना चाहती हूँ एक इमोशंस के बारे में और इंटरपर्सनल रिलेशनशिप्स के बारे में। तो मैं एक एग्जांपल देना चाहती हूँ कि मेरा एक बुक लॉन्च होने वाला है अभी 2 हफ्ते में, और बड़ी तरह से होने वाला है। और मेरी एक रिश्तेदार है जो नहीं आ पाएगी, और उसने मुझे बोला, ऐसे ही बोला कि मेरे पास काम है, मैं नहीं आ पाऊँगी। तो मुझे बहुत ही बुरा लगा कि वो नहीं, कुछ भी कोशिश नहीं कर रही है, वो आने के लिए तैयार नहीं है। और जबकि किताब तो 5 या 6 साल के बाद या बहुत दिनों के बाद लिख रहे हैं, और इस तरह की किताब जो इतनी पर्सनल है, उसके लिए भी नहीं आ पा रही है। तो मैं उसको एक्चुअली पहले तो मैं उसको कुछ भी रिप्लाई नहीं करना चाहती थी मैसेज को, और फिर मैं सोच रही थी कि मैं उसको एक मैसेज भेजूंगी जिसमें मैं आई विल एक्सप्रेस माई डिसअपॉइंटमेंट एंड मैं इसके साथ शायद गुस्सा हो जाऊंगी। पर एक्चुअली व्हाट आई हैव लर्न फ्रॉम स्पिरिचुअल थेरेपी इज डू नॉट प्रेस दैट सेंड बटन इन अ हरी। हम लोग को इतनी आदत हो गई है मैसेजिंग की कि और मैं व्हाट्सएप की बिल्कुल एडिक्ट हूँ, पर फिर भी मैं कहना चाहती हूँ ये सेंड बटन, do not send it when you are emotional. That is what I've learned. So I actually stepped back. Then I had a chat with my sister, and I understood from my sister that my relative was actually very upset that she couldn't attend my event, and that she was trying her best to attend it, and she was trying to see what she could do. And then I said, it's okay, I understand, I know that she'll try. Even if she can't come, at least she wants to come. And so I realized that it was because of the ability to just take a step back, not respond immediately, and not let the emotion overtake me, and to respond with my intellect rather than just with my mind. And that is something I've learned a lot from the study of the Vedanta Academy, of the difference between mind and intellect, and that has really helped me in a lot of my emotions and managing especially interpersonal conflict, which is the cause of a lot of stress. So I think that this is a really important aspect of any mental and emotional wellness. फिर लास्ट है लाइफस्टाइल थेरेपी। मेंटल वेलनेस, आप सोचेंगे अब मेरे पास बीमारी है तो मैं उसको बीमारी नहीं समझती हूँ। मैं समझती हूँ कि मेरे पास एक बगीचा है, और ये बगीचा है, ये गार्डन है जिसको मैं हर रोज़ अटेंड करूँ। ये दैट इज़ माई थिंकिंग। एंड हाउ डू आई अटेंड टू दिस गार्डन? इसके लिए बहुत डिसिप्लिन की ज़रूरत है। स्लीप, एक्सरसाइज, न्यूट्रिशन, जो हमारी ज़िंदगी सबके लिए है, पर मेरे लिए ख़ास तरह से बहुत ही ज़रूरी है। और मैं कोशिश किया करती हूँ कि मैं रेगुलर बेसिस पर एक्सरसाइज करती रहती हूँ। स्लीप तो बहुत ही ज़रूरी है। स्लीप तो मेरे लिए रिलीजन है बिल्कुल, कि मैं अगर 6-7-8 घंटे से कम नहीं सो सकती। 8 घंटे कम से कम मुझे सोना पड़ता है रात में। और न्यूट्रिशन भी ठीक से होना चाहिए। और तो ये सब चीज़ें बहुत ज़रूरी है। पर इक्वली मुझे रिलैक्सेशन के लिए टाइम बहुत ज़रूरी है, और ये मेरा झूला है मेरे घर पर, तो मैं अक्सर गाना सुनती रहती हूँ उस पर, वो बहुत मेरे लिए रिलैक्सिंग रहता है। तो ये लाइफस्टाइल थेरेपी की पार्ट है। तो लास्ट पार्ट है कंक्लूजन। आप सोचेंगे ये थेरेपीज कीप मी स्टेबल, पीसफुल और जॉयफुल, ये मेरे लिए ज़रूरी है। पर आपके लिए क्यों ज़रूरी है? क्योंकि बाइपोलर शायद 1% पॉपुलेशन को होता होगा, पर मेंटल वेलनेस के लिए ये सारों के सारे जो 7 थेरेपीज़ हैं बहुत ही रेलेवेंट है, और मेंटल वेलनेस हमारे पूरे 100% पॉपुलेशन को अफेक्ट करते हैं। और दूसरी चीज़ मैं आपको पूछना चाहती हूँ कि आपको शायद मेंटल हेल्थ का प्रॉब्लम हो या नहीं हो, पर आप किसके टीम पर हैं? आपको आपकी ज़िंदगी में कोई ना कोई होगा, आपके फ्रेंड, आपके परिवार में, आपके रिश्तेदार, आपके कॉलीग, आपके कोई भी ज़िंदगी में कोई होगा जिनके पास ये सब इश्यूज़ हो रही हैं। तो आप कैसे सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं? ये सब आंसर्स इस किताब में भी हैं। और लास्टली मैं नहीं कहना चाहती हूँ, पर बाकी और लोगों ने मुझे बताया है कि ये बहुत ही इंस्पायरिंग और एक एम्पावरिंग कहानी है, करेज की, वल्नरेबिलिटी की और रेजिलियंस की। और सबसे ज़्यादा हम देखेंगे कि ये जो वल्नरेबिलिटी है, हमारी सब की ज़िंदगी में कुछ न कुछ कमज़ोरी या वल्नरेबिलिटी है जिसे हम कहना नहीं चाहते हैं, पर यही वल्नरेबिलिटी हमारी स्ट्रेंथ बन सकती है। और यही रेजिलियंस से जो हम लोग अभी 2 साल से पैंडेमिक में जी रहे हैं, यही जो रेजिलियंस है वो उधर बढ़ सकती है। So I would like to end with a poem. I'll describe it in English and I'll speak about it in English. I went to Switzerland, and when I was, the last time I was there, and I wrote a poem about the snow, and there was a complete magical winter wonderland. So I saw the people skiing on the ski slopes, and so I wrote this about the ski slopes and the snow. For some, it's a slope. For some, it's powder. For some, it's seasonal dressing. For me, it's vairagya, the beauty of detachment. Would the tree be so precious without its silver? Yes, it comes and goes, but it is eternal, nature's silver lining playbook. Yet I am lost in its power. I cannot find the simple route home as I stare at the white forest. One day I will get there. I pray to the sun who melts this snow. That is Vairagya. So I'll just explain it. What it says that the slope, matlab, it's just a ski slope, but in life there is also a slippery slope of life that you can get onto a slippery slope and it becomes bad. For some, it's powder. Powder is a word that is used to describe the quality of the snow, but it is also a word to describe cocaine or something that is addictive. And even mania can be addictive. So to talk about how something that is beautiful can also become addictive. And for some, it's like a seasonal dressing. It's just the dressing on the salad kind of thing. But this snow, I've interpreted this through the metaphor of vairagya, which means detachment. So to say that how can I detach myself from something that I find beautiful, which is the snow, because the tree is still precious even without the silver, even though it comes and it goes, the tree is still precious. And nature's silver lining playbook is referring to a movie about bipolar. But I recognize that I am lost in the power of the snow because I am manic. I cannot go find the way home because all the buildings look the same. So I look at the forest and I say that the only way for me to get the detachment is to actually pray to the sun who will melt the snow. And that way there'll be no snow. I pray to the sun. So even something that I love, I will learn to be detached from. So even these emotions that I love, I will learn to be detached from. So that is what I thought. I thought I'll share that with you. And that is my book, Chemical Khichdi.
What an amazing journey. I think you've left me speechless. I think all the listeners, this has been a heart-to-heart talk and it has left all of us speechless. But then the speechless is probably for us, all of us, to introspect on the topic, the title you chose, mental and emotional wellness, not just for ourselves, but probably every soul on this particular globe. Ma'am, we are really indebted to you. We wish to express our sincere gratitude from our parent organization, All World Gayatri Parivar, that currently you've picked up a topic which is of so much of relevance. We read, we experience, we see people, we see tears in people's eyes, we see people struggle with their challenges, but there was none which actually showed that positive light of hope, that yes, there is a way out, and how beautifully you actually gave us those 8 pointers, which came as an action plan for anybody who's probably battling this challenge of mental health, or probably have someone, some loved one who's battling with this mental challenge. And I think it really takes a lot of strength to share your own journey. We really pick up, how beautifully you picked up that word, vulnerability. You mentioned in your talk that it's a strength. Of course, we wish to know more about how do you prove that it's a strength. But I think the icing on the cake was something that it's actually given us a lot of strength. I think to each one who's listening currently, who will probably listen to your recording, and via at Dia Mumbai, we are definitely going to circulate this video across to a lot of people. And yes, your book. You've already mentioned about the book. But yes, just to conclude, whatever pointers you've mentioned, the solution that you gave, medical therapy, a visit to a psychotherapist, medication, love therapy, uh, allies in therapy of empathy, something that you really mentioned, your daily download with friends, book club, work therapy, self therapy, spiritual therapy, lifestyle therapy, and yes, the word vulnerability. And the journey that you've mentioned, the episodes that have happened in your life, and your journey of success. Everyone who's listening to this Gyan Sabha, we are really inspired. You've really inspired us, and you are going to continue to inspire many souls across the globe with this positive beginning. Let's begin with our question answer session. But before that, just would like to, on behalf of All World Gayatri Parivar, which is the parent organization, we celebrate our Golden Jubilee celebrations, and it becomes all the more special because you picked up a title, a topic which is so much the need of the hour. We have a university called Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya located at Haridwar, which is built in the lines of Takshashila and Nalanda, where the Chancellor, respected Dr. Pranav Pandyaji, head of All World Gayatri Parivar, does touch upon the spiritual therapy part in his regular discourses on Yuga Gita for students on university campus. Students reside on campus, and the discourses are regularly once in 15 days, and also during Navaratri. One more special mention I would like to make about how meditation helps to quieten the racing thoughts and distractibility. And at DSVV campus and headquarters from 6 to 6:20, we have a regular meditation session called Nad Yoga, which is a symphony of musical instruments. So on behalf of All World Gayatri Parivar family, you're a part of our family. We request you and your family to please visit our headquarters and Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya. We would be really happy to host you, to have our family member amongst us, where you can enlighten so many students and so many youths, because that's one focus area for us at Dia Mumbai. Coming back to our question answer session, the question is coming from Mrs. Deepa Gokhale from Thane, and her question is, my son is having ADHD with bipolar. He's 21 years old, but he isn't ready to do anything to come out of it. As a mother, how do I help him?
Well, who is he willing to listen to is the question. I think that, he may not always be willing to listen to a parent, but he might be willing to listen to another person. Sure. Yeah. Hello?
We are able to hear you, ma'am. Continue,
Okay, yeah.
please.
Yeah. So I think the question is, who is he willing to listen to? Like, I think there are two, three issues that you need to do with something like this is that you have to differentiate really between personality and issue. Like, you have to tell him not that he as a person, as an individual is okay, but that he is dealing with a condition which is different. So I think over time when you're young, you do find it difficult to accept that, because you want to think that you're normal, you want to think that you're, there's nothing wrong with you, you're no different from any of your peers. Even I went through that and I accepted that. But I think that if you can show that there's a way that you can live with this and also have a very fulfilling life and live the life that you want to, that there's actually an outcome that can work. Because the problem is, a lot of the doctors also will paint a very negative picture. Okay, they might say that you can't do this or you can't do that. So it's really important to say that there is a positive part. I mean, if this book helps, that would be great. But I think it's really important to just make that distinction, that you can still live a life that you want to, but that if you take the help, it'll just become easier to live that life.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So I think this is going to really reduce the emotional burden of a mother. And we have our next question from Surabhi. Her question is, how and where can one find these safe and open spaces that you mentioned in your talk, ma'am?
I think you need to start by trusting the people around you, and then these safe and open spaces will open themselves up to you. Because you don't know how, you can't say that so and so is just a safe space or it's an open space. But once you start trusting the people around you, and it's slow, like first you start by trusting a few friends, then you trust a wider group of people, then you trust your work colleagues, whichever you can trust. So you just slowly start expanding that circle of people that you trust, and that circle automatically starts growing. So you have to start trusting and making yourself vulnerable.
Uh, Mrs. Deepa Gokhale has mentioned that nobody is willing to listen to anyone right now. So this is like a serious mother speaking from her heart, that nobody is willing to listen to anybody right now. So
I
how
think
does
he
that?
isn't willing. I think that what she's trying to say is probably that he isn't willing to listen to anyone
Absolutely.
right now. Well, he can come and talk to me if he wants to. I can try and make him understand if he wants to. But the point is, at least try with the book. But
Okay.
it diagnosis comes as a relief. Diagnosis always helps, because you then can take the right action. It's not just the medication, it's all the other therapies that I just talked about. You can start changing your life, and you can be much more in control of your life rather than the illness being in control of you. So the diagnosis helps, whatever condition you have, whether you have a physical condition or you have a mental health condition, diagnosis always helps.
So you mean to say that once the acceptance comes, the way is easier for
Yeah.
him?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is coming from Prabhuji from Mumbai. Prabhuji from Vadodara, I'm sorry. Are suicidal thoughts and behavior common among people with bipolar disorder? Did you have the same? And if yes, how did you overcome it?
Unfortunately, Prabhu, I think they are quite common. I think, unfortunately, the suicide rates also are higher for people with bipolar than others. Yes, I have had suicidal ideation. Not that I have ever harmed myself or taken any steps in that area, but I have had that ideation. How did I overcome it was really through a lot of journaling, reflection, writing. I think fundamentally I was very determined that my illness is not going to get the better of me. So I think I just had a lot of resilience in there to say that, I am going to actually not let the illness get the better of me. Funnily, I had the support, obviously, of family, and that lifted my spirits day to day, very important, because obviously I had my family. But I have to tell you very honestly, there were times when I did not say that, because I have a family, that means I'm not going to be suicidal. Like, my duties to my family were not actually the top of my mind. And probably I'm not alone when I say that. So I kind of felt that nobody would notice if I wasn't there, which is obviously not the case. You know.
Oh, uh, there's a question from Prakash from Ahmedabad. I have mood swings. How do I know if I'm bipolar?
Yeah. So that is A very good question, because everybody has mood swings, and they all go up and down. But are your mood swings so sufficient, so extreme that you are losing sleep and you're behaving in a very different way than normal? Are you kind of maybe spending a lot more money than you would normally do? Maybe you're getting having driving recklessly or behaving in a reckless way, in a wild way. So you're having a sort of extreme mood swings. That's when things, and they go on for a long time. It's not that it just happens for a day, but goes on for like a few days at a time. That's more an indication of mania. It's always best to discuss it with a medical practitioner, though, and to go and see a therapist or a or a counselor or a psychiatrist, just to have a conversation if you feel that things are going out of your control.
Uh, uh, there's also a question. Uh, why did you write Chemical Khichdi book? As to what made you actually pen down everything that you wrote? What's your objective?
So I wanted to tell my story, and I thought that it would be helpful to people. But when I first wrote it, basically when I first started writing it, I kept having mood swings, so I couldn't really finish it, or I couldn't really get into it. But way back in 2014, I wrote a note called 10 Things I've Learned About Being Bipolar. And I shared it with my friends and family, and they thought it was a nice uh, document that could be helpful for people. So I think it was partly like I wanted to share my story, and I thought it would be helpful for people. So that's how it started.
Ma'am, typically when we speak about mental and emotional wellness, the pandemic, the current situations have been tough. The name of the problem have been different for each one of us. So we would like to touch upon each one of them. Probably you could give a solution to a lot of people who are actually battling it currently when we are hosting this Gyan Sabha. Somebody who's lost their near and dear one, for them it acts like a trigger. And it really, it's been days, it's been months, sometimes it's years that that individual is unable to come out of that. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means on bereavement, so I don't want to sort of just say, but I think that and I haven't lost anyone close to me in the pandemic, but I think that we all take time to process death. It is something that is very difficult. I've seen some of my very close friends who lost their father, let's say 15 years ago, and they're still not able to really manage without that person in their life. So I think at the end of the day, we have to sort of find ways of cherishing that memory, and being able to, I can only say, Suchita, what I would do in this situation, which is
Hmm.
that I would want to do something to celebrate that person, and to celebrate that person's memory. And that could be doing something charitable, that could be doing something every year on their birth anniversary or their death anniversary, and doing something to remember that, what that person was all about. And that's one way of possibly finding that the closure. But I'm sure if it's somebody who's very dear to you, you may never find that. I wouldn't like to just use that word closure, but some way of just looking at something positive out of their life.
That's a brilliant, solution for probably something like this. At times, say for example, you have somebody who's probably going through a physiological disorder which affects you and the entire family. For example, you have an individual who's suffering from cerebral palsy, and the other son is died to COVID, and the parents are senior citizens. So we are kind of lost of words as to how does one handle this situation.
Yeah. The only way, unfortunately, the only thing that one can do is to get help in that situation, right? What can you do? Like, if this is the situation that one then has to get help, how do you reconcile how life has been in terms of misfortune? That is a more philosophical question, and that raises issue of things like your karma and others, which is a more philosophical question whether you believe in that or not, and that can offer you solace or not. But I think that if you've got these kind of conditions that you live with and you're on your own, then you'd have to have no choice but to try and get help.
We also get questions in Dia Mumbai where an individual has had requests for sexual advances, and that acts as a trigger for somebody to go into depression. How would you handle such a situation?
Sushita, I have to tell you one thing is that I'm not a trained therapist or a psychiatrist, so it's difficult necessarily for me to answer these questions. Okay, but I think to to get into depression of any sort, the thing that has really helped me is to look at this distinction. It is a philosophical comment that I'm going to make right now, but
Hmm.
to look at this distinction between mind and intellect, because if when your intellect is something which is really helps to deal with emotion. So there was one comment that one of the videos that I watched, right, was that if you for somebody who feels a lot, life is a tragedy, and for somebody who thinks, life is a comedy. Okay, now I'm not talking about the triggers of the depression as necessarily being comic, but I'm just trying to say is that if you are, and I'm somebody who feels a lot, right? So I can feel a lot of emotion, and then things can always seem like that I'm getting disappointed or that I had expectation, and things don't work out. But if you just step back and you look at the needs that you had, and you take your intellect and you say what were the needs that were not being met, and how do you express those needs, then I think you're less likely to get into the state of depression. So I'll just go back to that example I shared about my family member, right, who wanted to about that event. So I I wanted her to attend my event. It sounds like a really simple thing, but yeah, she's somebody really important to me. I wanted her to attend the event, and she didn't look like she cared a lot. But
Hmm.
then and but when I and when I found out from my sister that she's actually she is very upset about it. The need was that the rest of reciprocity, that what I felt for her, I wanted her to feel for me, you know. So the need is one of reciprocity. And if you understand what those needs are, then you can probably understand how to deal with the emotions that come from the needs, right? But if you're only caught up with the emotions,
Hmm.
then you don't know what those needs are. And that's why that distinction between mind and intellect really helps you to understand the distinction between the needs and the emotions.
Well, with your experience and the research and the work that you've been doing on mental health, we see that you've actually given some real-time solutions to a lot of concerns that we just discussed. Uh, just wanted to share that the founder of All World Gayatri Parivar, Pandit Sri Ram Sharma Acharya ji, who's a writer of more than 3,000 books, he also speaks about thought revolution. And so, just wanted your thoughts on, can study circles and reading literature transform lives? What has been your take on the role of literature in handling mental health issues?
What else transforms lives? Tell me.
Well, yes, it has helped many.
Of course. So we spent 1 year studying just one book. I mean, the book is some 250 pages or something, and our teacher spent 1 year with just one book. So you would need many lifetimes to study your guru's books.
True, true. And ma'am also would like to make a mention that the Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Chinmay Pandaji from Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya, is a qualified medical professional, currently serving as the Pro Vice Chancellor and following his medical studies in India, trained in United Kingdom, where he gained the membership of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, would really try to synergize with you, and if you could visit our university, maybe would help us to work unitedly on this front, on this issue, this burning issue of mental health.
Yeah,
That's a
sure.
humble request from our side.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you, if you could just drop me an email, otherwise I will just be bad
Sure,
about forgetting.
sure. I
So
would,
I
I
think
would just,
I think this I think Deepa Gokhale is worried about certain things. So can I just answer her question?
yes, yes. So
So
her, yeah.
so she's finding it really difficult to handle her son, which I can imagine because been that I have been that son to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I think she needs to. I would suggest is that she should try and find people who can be help her. She should maybe see a therapist. She should find ways to relax. She should just find things that she can take it in shifts. Like literally, my family used to take it in shifts to look after me. You know, so I think it's you have to realize that you can't do it all on your own. That's why I keep saying it's a team sport. So she has to understand who's on her team. And it is legitimate for her to find other people to help her. That's
True.
absolutely legitimate as a concern, whoever that is, in
Absolutely.
her life. But somebody she needs to recruit onto her team.
So thank you so much. We would share your contact details with her, your mail ID, which she would definitely write to you. And there is Deepa from Jamshedpur, whose question is: I try a lot not to be influenced by fearful and future-oriented thinking, but I'm not successful.
Yes, I think we've all been there, Deepa. I think that we all worry about. We have anxiety, right? So what do people say? Depression is about the past, anxiety is about the future, and peace is about the present, right? So that is how that's a simple way of looking at some of these life's challenges. And so I think we all go through anxiety and we worry about that. There is this, I also used to go to this thing called catastrophizing, where you just blow it all up out of proportion and you think one small thing will happen and everything will turn into much bigger and awful. And I think that tried to do a lot more of, first of all, thinking life is the journey, not the destination. It's just enjoying the journey and not worrying about the destination. So, even for example, right now I'm planning this book launch, but my book is actually very delayed by Penguin. And even though we're having all these events and everything, it's not available at the shop. It's only available on Amazon for pre-order. So there's always stress about how things are going to happen, but I'm actually not letting it get stressed because I'm just saying I'm enjoying this journey and the destination will happen whenever it happens. So I think to try and separate that cause and effect is a big thing. So working on the cause and not getting so worried about the effect is important. And I think it always helps to look at the bigger picture, because actually in the bigger picture some of our concerns and anxieties are not so important, you know because we like I said, we all have a tendency to worry and to say, but some things are beyond our control. And if anything I've learned from COVID is I've learned to let go, right? Because things can be out of your control. Things can just change. You never know what's going to happen. So learning to let go and that detachment is really important.
Thank you, ma'am. Purnima from Nagpur has a question. What psychological factors contributes to bipolar disorders?
That's a good question. I think that there could be all sorts of stress. It could be work-related stress. It could be interpersonal stress. It could be getting some sort of anxiety um, about sort of doing too many things at one time. So what happens typically with, let's say, if you've got too many deadlines and you've got too many projects going on, for let's say a normal person or person without bipolar, they will just collapse and they will kind of give up. But the bipolar person gets into a tornado and they just end up going higher and higher. So there could be really a combination of emotions, right? So if there's an excitement plus stress plus anxiety plus fear, frustration. So there's a combination of emotions going on. Too many of these things happening at the same time. That can all be triggers.
A common question, I mean, since I'm in academics, a lot of students come and say, with whom do we share our mental health issues, ma'am?
Yeah.
Is
So
at times a lot of schools, colleges in India don't even have a counselor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So,
yeah. So I think today there are quite many more options than earlier. So I think you should always discuss with your inner circle and, to see what kind of feedback you get. In my book, I mention a lot of resources that are available, accessible, some at a very cost-effective basis, different kinds of resources for caregivers also. So there are a lot of resources of different types available now. There are apps you can also download and approach. I mentioned some of those. There are Instagram handles you can follow to just understand how to deal with your various emotions. So there is actually a lot available to look at it, and I think it's important to understand some of these.
Thank you, ma'am. A very important point that you just now mentioned is the role of caregiver. Now, the caregiver has to be really resilient, and uh, a lot of time it has been observed that the caregiver actually, is goes into depression. So, how does the family handle such a situation?
I think the family has to really support as a team sport. You can't just expect one person to do it, it's impossible. You have to have like more than one person looking at it. And I think that if the family support is there, then it can really help. Um, I think that there's, for example, there are, it's a lot about understanding what those triggers are and trying to take care of that trigger management. So for the families, for the caregivers, I have this four T's actually. One is that there has to be a lot of trust. You have to have a lot of trust between the caregiver and the patient, and the trust has to be built up during the times when everybody is okay. Otherwise, they'll never listen to you. They'll never take your meds. If they don't trust you, they won't do any of this. They won't listen to you when they're unwell. So the trust, they have to do the trigger management. They have to understand what the triggers are and be careful with them. They have to they look at the therapy option, and then, like I said, the team sport. So all of these are really important.
So you really mentioned about the solutions that we have, and there are a lot of feedback that our participants have shared that it's a wonderful topic, and we've got a wonderful speaker. One question coming in that says, "Does food that we eat affect our mental and emotional health?"
Yeah, I think it does. I think that I definitely know that I eat the wrong foods when I'm looking for comfort and joy. That I do that a lot because I have the sugar addiction. So I do that quite a lot. But I think there's a lot of research now that says there's a huge relationship between the gut and the mind. So the brain and the gut are very linked to each other. So there's a lot of research over there. I wouldn't say like I'm an expert on this. You'd have to speak to a nutritionist to really understand what works well. But there is definitely a relationship.
Abhijit from Kolkata is asking, "Don't you feel the mental and emotional wellness is nothing but hurting our own self?"
I saw that question, but I didn't really understand what he meant. Don't you feel any mental or emotional wellness is hurting our own self? I didn't really quite understand that question.
I think he means to say that it is somewhere acting as a block for your own development, for your personal and professional development.
But I think mental and emotional wellness is part of who we are. So if we don't work on it, then we can't develop our own self. I think it is quite synonymous with ourself, not hurting our own self.
And one last question on something that was how a lot of time people say that I don't want to share things with people because they would understand my weaknesses. So, I am vulnerable at such times. So, how do you state that vulnerability is actually a strength? How do you prove that point?
Yeah, so if let's say I had not shared this with people, I wouldn't have got a lot of inner illumination, right, into myself, I wouldn't have written this book. I wouldn't have understood all these concepts that we just talked about, whether it's a question of detachment or any of the other spiritual path that I've been on. I wouldn't have been on this path without understanding it, and it's only by sharing it with others. In the book I've interviewed something like 75 people. Almost 60 of those people are within my own circle, and so I've shared with them very openly, and because I've shared, they're able to help, and because you're receiving a lot of help, you are in a better position than you were earlier. You have to be prepared to receive. I think a lot of us are just not prepared to receive help or ask for help, like the situation that one of the attendees talked about.
Seeking help,
They don't
asking.
want to seek help, ask for help, receive help because they don't want to admit that there's something wrong with them. But we have too much of an ego to ask for the help.
Absolutely. Uh, Ma'am, and just that the fact that the articles that you've written in Times of India and a lot of other literature that you shared and we've read about you, uh, how did you garner strength? How did it come to you to accept that you are bipolar? And how did this acceptance happen? Because as you rightly mentioned, a lot of people are not coming to the stage where they accept this is a concern and I need to walk ahead and I only will walk ahead. A lot of people try helping people who are probably into mental depression, but they're unable to take the first step. So
Yeah, so it took me a while. Suchita, it took me a while also to accept. I mean, I started doing therapy quite early on because I knew I had some issues. But to accept that I have a full blown disorder and that I needed medication, it was a while, right? It did take me a long time. But I think that ultimately it had reached the stage, my condition had reached the stage where literally I was in such a bad state that I had to take the medication. There was no choice. Otherwise I would not stabilize. So it was absolutely required for my physical health as much as my mental health, you know.
I think we all are enlightened, and I think we all have smiles on our face to accept that it's okay to be in depression at some or the other point in our lives. And I think that's normal if you, go into depression at some or the other point in your life. But yes, today when we conclude our Gyan Sabha with you, ma'am, we conclude with a lot of takeaways, a lot of action plans and doables. And I think our audience has given a lot of feedback. All salute to you, and I hope we're all waiting to grab that book. I'm waiting to order this for my college library for my personal self and gift and each one who's probably battling with this. And in case if we have it sometime in future, I'm sure it's going to give away some real time solutions to handle this concern. We at Allwell Gayatri Parivar wish you all the best, and I hope that you make a positive difference in lives of many. We conclude this Gyan Sabha with a sincere prayer that the work that you've started on mental health continues and it enlightens many lives. And may the Almighty bless you and your family. I think they had a huge role to play in your journey, the success. The way you are bringing smiles on so many people's lives, you're inspiring so many youngsters. There has been a role of the entire family. A lot of we would like to offer a prayer for you and your family for the successful launch of your book, Chemical Khichdi, How It Hacked My Mental Health. So I request all of you all to join us with this prayer. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. We look forward for your visit to our headquarters, Shantikunj, Haridwar, headquarters of Allwell Gayatri Parivar, our university, Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya, our Dr. Chinmay Pandya ji, the Pro Vice Chancellor of Dev Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya. The contact details I will share with you on email so that you are able to enlighten the youngsters there. And I think we work in synergy and we continue with this great work on mental health together. We express our sincere gratitude, respected ma'am, and we thank all this August audience who've joined us from various social media platforms. We look forward to the next Gyan Sabha next Sunday at 4:30. Thank you so much. We conclude today's Gyan Sabha with Shanti Path. Om Dhyo Shanti Antarikshagum Shanti Prithvi Shantirapah Shantiroshadayah Shanti Vanaspatayah Shantirvishve Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti सर्वगुं शान्ति शान्तिरेव शान्ति सामा शान्तिरेधि ॐ शान्तिः 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 सर्वारिष्ठा शान्तिर्भवतु. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.